another one, and another one, and another one. The Florida Gators have added yet another commitment. Kendall Jackson, you are a Florida Gator.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another bonus episode of Locked On Gators. And even on top of that, your second bonus commitment episode of Locked On Gators this week. It's incredible. Kendall Jackson is a Florida Gator, but thank you for listening to Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast. Happy Wednesday evening. I'm Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon Rindberg with Whole Line Sports Giants Country NFL 33. But Kendall Jackson has committed to the Florida Gators, which is, by the way, freaking awesome. No other way to put it. Gainesville kid from FW Buchholz and also teammate to last year Florida Gator signee and enrollee, that's a freshman this year, Gavin Hill, also along the defensive line. So Kendall Jackson, just continuing the pipeline here now with the Florida Gators, and it is fantastic here. Kendall is a 3-star going by composite ranking. Only place that has him as a 4-star is, hold on, make sure you're sitting down, because the only place that has Kendall Jackson as a 4-star on their rankings, it's on 3. I know, it's crazy stuff. But Kendall Jackson is going to play Jack for the University of Florida. That's where they've been recruiting him. That's where they've been telling him he's going to play. So he is going to play Jack. I think that's a pretty great spot for him. He's right now listed at 6'4", 250 pounds. Obviously, that gives him some room to add a bit of muscle, lose a bit of fat, as every teenager does when they get to the University of Florida. As far as being in the program, I know that, people gain weight when they go to college. That's fine. He's just going to turn that into a rocked up frame. It's as simple as that. So he's got that room to go. Probably expect him to, if he's going to stay at Jack, probably try to cap out at like 270-ish when it's all said and done in a few years. Obviously, do not expect that to happen by the time he's on campus, of course, unless he's, first off, actually heavier than 250, or if he's already working on gaining weight there. But also, even if he is being recruited to play Jack, and he is being pursued as a Jack, which if you don't know what the specific terms are, Jack is that stand-up edge rusher for the Florida Gators. Okay, you've got your nose tackle, who's your Des Watson, your big dude there. You've got your 3-tech, who is thought of as more of like a gap shooter, pass rushing defensive tackle, whether that's Javon Dexter from last year, technically called the defensive end because he's the last down lineman on the end, whatever. He's a 3-tech. He's a defensive tackle. Or that 5, the F is what Florida calls it, which is the defensive end, which is what Princely Umanmielen played last year. This year, Princely Umanmielen is going to play Jack. However, even though he is being recruited as a Jack, fully expect him to play multiple positions. That's been a clear trend from this Florida Gators coaching staff since Billy Napier got here is, hey, we want defenders who could play multiple positions. That's why you constantly hear, is he, a defensive tackle or a defensive end? Is he a D end or a Jack? Is he a Jack or an off-ball linebacker? Is he a corner or a safety? What is he? That Florida wants guys who can play multiple positions. Kendall Jackson is the kind of guy that I think will play Jack primarily, but will also be able to play that F, that defensive end spot. And it would not shock me if by the end of his time as a Florida Gator, he was even heavier and he was mostly playing that defensive end spot or 3 technique as like the pass rushing gap shooter there. Like we know that Florida wants him to play Jack primarily right now. That's what they're showing, or that's what they're telling him right now. But also, you're going to be able to work in at least one more spot. Even if he stays as primarily a jack, would not shock me if he plays that defensive end or 3 technique spot, at least in a pass rushing situation. We know that I've talked plenty about what I love with NASCAR, which NASCAR is just putting 4 great pass rushers, even though you're probably going to be a bit undersized, putting 4 great pass rushers, just letting them pin their ears back and get after the quarterback, which, based on what Florida's doing on the recruiting trail, absolutely seems like something that they're going to bring in, at least with this 2024 class, maybe even 2023, but at least with this 2024 class. Adarius Hayes is primarily off-ball linebacker, but people think he can play edge. Put him at jack. Take Jamonte Waller from jack. Put him at the end. Take Amaris Williams from probably the end. Put him at the 3 tech. Like you could do an insane amount of things with NASCAR. So I fully expect Florida to try to at least work that into their approach at some point. But Kendall Jackson is a massive add here. I understand that people are going to see the rankings and see 3-star or 4-star if you're looking at on 3, and they're going to be like, okay, this is just like whatever, bottom of the recruiting class add. Here's the thing. And I think this actually speaks volumes to how good this coaching staff thinks Kendall Jackson can be. Florida has had no problem recruiting defensive linemen or edge rushers under Billy Napier and just this entire regime right now, especially for 2024. Okay. But they still want Kendall Jackson in their class, and they've turned down other kids. Okay. Like Jordan Ross, I don't think he was going to be a Florida Gator to begin with, but the coaching staff not pursuing him anymore. Okay. So Jordan Ross is a guy who's higher ranked, and the coaching staff said, we're going to stop. They didn't stop for Kendall Jackson. This coaching staff has had no problem going outside of the state of Florida, which is not something the Florida Gators do often, but they've gone outside of the state of Florida to pursue other talent. Not Kendall Jackson. Kendall Jackson is an in-state kid that they think can play in the SEC. And also, I've told the story a billion times at this point. This coaching staff can evaluate like no other. Like they're right up there at the top with, Kirby and Saban. They're up there, okay? This is an elite evaluating just coaching staff, okay? I've said it before. I've had the story of someone who used to be on a staff with Napier, and it was like, hey, he writes like full-length scouting reports on these kids. Full-length scouting reports when most college coaches write like a couple of sentences. So I don't care about the ranking in general, but especially here, I don't at all. We're going to talk about how this really impacts the entire class for the Florida Gators. But first, today's episode of Locked On Gators is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook, #1 in your app and #1 in your heart. Take your first swing at betting on the MLB if you have not already on FanDuel, and get 10 times your first bet amount back in bonus bets, up to $200. So you could bet, say, $20 on Adley Rushman hitting a home run in his first game back on Friday, or bet for him to hit the first home run on Friday in his game, of course. And he either does and you cash and you make money, great job, or he doesn't and you get $200 back in bonus bets if you bet $20 on it. All with an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. Sign up today at FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get up to $200 back in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to podcasts. And please do make sure to like, subscribe, comment, review, do whatever it is you want to do. Also join the Locked On Gators Discord. The link's in the description below. And, well, we have some fun in there. We've been talking about Kendall Jackson. We've been talking about Fletcher Westphal. We've been talking about some commitments that are going to happen this weekend. So just saying, you're missing out. But I would say with Kendall Jackson's commitment, 24/7's class calculator is acting up right now. And the site hasn't updated yet at the time of recording this, or at the time of doing this. But based on similarly ranked kids and how they impact the class, I would expect to see about a 7-point bump from the Gators, which puts them at 277, which keeps them as the 3rd ranked class. But instead of being the 3rd ranked class and, 11 points behind Ohio State, you're now just 4 points behind Ohio State. Again, assuming my math is correct, which could be wrong, obviously. But either way, this should place you just a few points behind Ohio State. You know what that means, Gators fans? That means that this weekend, we could see Florida take over as the number 2 class on 24/7's composite rankings as soon as this weekend, if 1 or 2 commitments fall in Florida's favor and Ohio State does not add to their class. We could see Florida be number 2 in the country, number 2 in the nation on the composite 24/7. That would still leave them considerably behind Georgia. Georgia right now has a 30-point lead over Ohio State. Okay, so before Kendall, a 40-point lead over Florida. However, Florida being number 2 is just, by the way, like that's awesome for the rivalry of Georgia-Florida. Be awesome. Florida does still need to address corner, which will hopefully be addressed this Friday. Teddy Foster's committing. This Saturday, Jalen Crawford has a commitment date set. There's a few players who are set to commit this weekend. Ashton Hampton is set to commit on Saturday. There's quite a few guys who Florida's at least in play for that are committing this weekend. So Florida could jump Ohio State for number 2. But again, like I think the important part here, or one of the most important parts here, Kendall Jackson is just the 4th player from the state of Florida in the Gators 2024 recruiting class. That just goes to show, I think, that this staff is not afraid to leave the state of Florida to get players that they want, but also that Kendall Jackson is a player that the staff really wants. I was worried he might not be I was worried that the staff might push him away when they started adding some of the bigger names, but they didn't. And they did push away other kids. So for me, that speaks so highly of what this staff thinks of Kendall Jackson. So I'm all in here. I'd expect, a couple more in-state kids to commit as this staff tries to kind of put a bow around this class. But this is just an incredible class that continues to get better. Add a couple corners and chef's kiss, wrap it up. You could add a couple corners before the start of the season and then go, okay, we're still going to push for a couple kids we missed on, like Jeremiah Smith and a few other kids by the time National Signing Day wraps up. But we get to spend most of the fall pursuing, 5 kids we missed on and just retaining our class. And that's a luxury that the Florida Gators have not had in a very long time. And it's incredible to see. Thank you so much for tuning in for Locked On Gators, another bonus episode. Appreciate all of you here for Locked On Gators. I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. We will be back with Brian Smith tomorrow to talk about some of these DBs that Florida's pursuing. But for now, have a great rest of your Wednesday. And thank you so much. I'll see you again here on Locked On Gators.